people often ask me, what got you into psychedelics? What was your first experience on a psychedelic medicine like? And how has it supported you in your journey? And so the reason I got into it is psychedelics found me. And just like anything on our journey, when it keeps lining up and there seems to be synchronicities, some people talking about it, educating myself, learning more, and it just keeps coming up as a theme that I think I need to do this. And my first experience wasn't something that I expected. And as a highly sensitive, intuitive person, you could say I'm also neurodivergent. The way I experience the world is already very different. And so I had to acclimate most of my life to be operational in a material world, to not see energy fields around people when I'm walking around because it was disorienting, to see people for their physical structure and what they're saying and their body language versus their energy, because their energy speaks louder and is moving quicker and giving more information to me than maybe what they're masking. So most of my journey has been trying to acclimate to fit into a neurotypical world. And so when I did my first journey, I did psychedelics, I did psilocybin mushrooms and MDMA therapy with 2 psychotherapists who have been doing this work for a very long time. And they're incredible facilitators. And it was about maybe 2 hours into my journey, into my experience. And I came up to them, I said, hey, this is really odd, but what I'm experiencing right now is almost exactly how I experienced the world my entire life. Seeing auras around people, having high sense perception turned up, my volume knob for my psychic sense is up. The filters are gone. They say the default mode network is affected in the psychedelic journey. So my sense of ego identity was dissolved, more so, not completely, but loosened. And that's just how I operated for most of my journey. So I had this awareness then in the group setting that other people were having this experience too. And on some level, it made me feel at home that this experience is giving people a glimpse or a window into how I've experienced the world my entire life and have learned had to acclimate to fit into the normal society, because how I experience the world is extrasensory, multidimensional, systems-based thinking. And this is really interesting to me because that itself was just therapeutic of helping me feel more a part of a group, more a part of that I belong here as a human being. Because experiencing the world the way I have my life has really been a blessing. It's been challenging, and from a perspective socially, sometimes I always feel like I never felt like I really fit in the way that other people fit in. And that to me was part of the medicine, part of the journey in doing it in a group setting. Was really all people letting down these masks that I see through naturally as a medium. I see through who they are, and I want to deeply connect with that person in there when I see in just normal waking life. And a lot of times we don't have access to that because of our programming, our patterns, our fears, our worries about what people will think of us. And a lot of times I'm trying my best to get past that. So that's why I love doing my work as a medium. People come in and they're giving me permission. They're giving us permission for holding a container, a space for us to get into that the parts of themselves, to explore, to share what I see and how I see them. And that's really part of that medicine work for them working with me. So it was really cool to be in a group setting where I could let down my guard and see other people letting down theirs as well. So it can truly just be human beings together. So my first experience was, of course, normally how I experience the world. When I go into my altered states now, I can turn it on and off as a medium, is seeing colors around people, having heightened senses as far as the input of feeling, touch, sound, and it being something that was more pleasurable in the medicine. Sometimes for me, as a medium, as a sensitive, it depends on the circumstances and the time, what I'm doing that day and that month, how my nervous system is acclimated, that sometimes these extrasensory experiences, when I turn them up in a session, sometimes they're not as pleasant. So that was really cool to have that experience. What is it, the question of how it supported me? How it supported me in my journey is it's really helped me to deeper acclimate to my physical body, which is really interesting because some people, when they get in space, depending on what medicine they're using, depending on the set and setting, the circumstances, they're going in a different space. And for me, it was calming myself down, calming my nervous system down, because normally it's very heightened as a highly sensitive person. I have less filters than most people, so I'm on input mode a lot, and it really does take a toll on my nervous system. So of course I do yoga and breath work. My diet and my lifestyle has to be pristine in order for me to function at optimal levels as a sensitive system. And so what the medicine did for me is it helped down regulate me to a level that created sustainable effects long term. And I've seen this do that for other people, and that's why I think it's so supportive for trauma. The healing of the nervous system, getting people acclimated, helping them get out of their mind, or if they're working with a therapist in their sessions, I was watching their redirecting or question asking or helping people come to a different mindset or get out of a pattern that maybe they had always been stuck in. So the neuroplasticity is real, the ability to change long-standing patterns, beliefs, or habits through different perspectives. And that's what I offer normally as a service provider. So entering into a space where this medicine is offering that in its essence of what it does was just brilliant. And so it felt like to me a plant ally that I was always missing from my life. Now, how has it changed my day-to-day offerings, my day-to-day? I'm able to just really sleep better. I'm able to I feel like I'm able to connect better in the world with other people instead of having this guard up of fear of isolation or fear of abandonment, a lot of abandonment trauma that I had worked through, and feeling different. So that contribute into that abandonment trauma, feeling alone, isolated, separate. And I think that has been the number one thing it supported me with, and changing my perspectives when I would get stuck in a thinking pattern. So then the really cool thing that happened for me after I did my first journey was I said to myself, or Ted said to the universe, I said to Source, this is so cool. The experience I had was profoundly life-changing. And of course I dove into all the resources, books, podcasts, documentary films to just learn more and see that there's an entire renaissance in the psychedelic industry for, coming back and out of a place where we're not using this medicine for escapism, for partying, and of course that still happens. But this is where, to me, I wanted to find people that were serious about using this in a way that was supporting their personal evolution and personal growth, because that's all I'm about. That's my entire life, my entire work that I do. And so to me, it was just, how do I find these people? How do I find people that just aren't burning themselves out with drugs and wanting to go party all the time with it? Not that I judge that at all, but I wanted to find like-minded people that were in this space. And that very month I had put in an article for a new modality that I was offering here at the clinic called color puncture. And I had it in the Natural Awakenings magazine. I was at the gym and I said, let me check out and see how the article turned out. I opened to the page where the article was. I read it, great article. Below it was an article that said Central PA Psychedelic Society forming. And it just felt like the universe dropped a breadcrumb. And so I inquired with the organizer and I said, who is this person? Immediately I'm a little skeptical about, is it just going to be a bunch of people doing drugs? Like, what is this? And I contacted her and she said, this is so funny. You were at the top of my list, your clinic, at the top of my list as a space that we would want to see if you'd be willing to hold our gatherings. And we met in person and it felt like, soulmate, soul sister, world, different type of conscious leader vibe that I was really been looking for, and someone who holds high integrity in harm reduction and safety, in ethics, and holding safe boundaries and safe spaces. Because I've been around the block, in the spiritual world, and there's a lot of bypassing that happens, consciously and unconsciously. There's people that are not able to always hold space that feels safe and has good boundaries. And especially when we're entering into these spaces that are vulnerable, right? People end up coming to see readers or alternative professionals like Reiki providers and some of these spiritual-based services, that's my profession, and they're vulnerable people that are on the borderline of their own mental health crises or struggling with big life changes. And this is where I've seen, unfortunately, this misuse of power that comes in these dynamics. And it's a big thing for me to educate and to hold space in my clinic and at our expos and events of trying to make sure that that doesn't happen with our professionals that we work with, because it does happen. You know, I'm not here to be the ethics police, but I know it does happen. And so it was my first concern in these even more vulnerable spaces where people are entering in through an altered state of consciousness. Who are the facilitators, their background in psychotherapy, trauma, trauma and health trauma informed spaces. And so I felt like this is the way to starting this organization and being a part of it, so that not only could educate people, support them in discerning for themselves the spaces they may get involved in, because there is, of course, legal aspects and avenues to working with medicines in the state of Pennsylvania, ketamine therapy. I just did a podcast on that with Dr. Tony Reigel. He's a veteran and a first responder, and he has his own ketamine clinic, and he's an incredible human being doing incredible work with these types of psychedelic assisted therapies. But either way, I just feel that this was aligned, and we started this organization in 2022. And now this is a space where we're continuing to gather community to talk about these things, to have integration, to really help destigmatize it, but also to share our stories about what we've experienced. And even people who come to the space, they don't necessarily have had experiences with psychedelics, or maybe they're never going to, and that's okay. It's not for everyone, but they have this interest and this intrigue. And sometimes people can go through a huge life change. You know, part of their identity, who they think they were, who they think they are, is either crumbling or transforming or dissolving, and that's a very scary place to be. And that can happen with a near-death experience, a loss of a job, becoming an empty nester, getting divorced, all these things that threaten our sense of who we are, and especially the global chaotic environment we're living in. Sudden shifts can really change this sense of identity that we carry so dearly to ourselves. And psychedelics does support journeying through that in a very safe container if you have discernment with who you're choosing to work with. I also believe that psychedelics isn't the only path to having this. People can experience this type of thing through a deep breathwork practice, or a life-changing experience seeing a intuitive professional or a healer, something that challenges the way that they believe the world to be. And all of a sudden they have the experience, and wait, the world's not this way. It's so much bigger. It's more expensive than I thought it was. So I believe that the community that we're building, that we have, are holding conversations around these changes, not just in ourselves individually, but around how, as we're shifting individually through these experiences, whether it's psychedelic experiences, near-death experiences, trauma that creates sometimes disassociation and feelings or experiences of spiritual phenomenon, and something that I work with, that can shift our perspective. And as we're shifting, having that container to support community in these conversations and getting resources and access to resources that are healthy and safe, that I think is what's creating this ripple effect, and what we can see changes in the collective, not only through advocacy for some of the groups and organizations that are connected to us that are supporting legal change in the access for veterans and these populations that really need this type of medicine, but also for just education and the access to something that is there, that does work. And we need that, because the mental health crisis we're experiencing in this world, not only in this country, and the isolation and loneliness is further driving us deeper into dysfunction. And I really am so glad that psychedelics found me. Just like anything in life, when it's meant to be, it finds you. And I'm here to just educate people and give them access to a perspective, as always, that's what I do, a perspective that they may not have considered otherwise.